Welcome, welcome, welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, as we go into November, we are reminded of our civic duty and the support of all of our fellow citizens.
But they look like dorks. Their stupid helmets, their little crossing guards.
Now I wish good luck to all of our tributes and the districts they honor. Happy Hunger Games, and may the odds be ever in your favor. Hi friends, I'm Samantha Rei. Welcome to Cinematire. This is a series where I, a fashion designer, talk about effective or ineffective science fiction, TV, and movie costume. This is your future. How will you dress it? So today we're going to talk about The Hunger Games, which is one of my very favorite properties. I love the books. The movies were pretty okay. The first one, which we're going to talk about today, is probably the one that didn't really push it the farthest, in my opinion. But I love the story as a whole. I feel like the books and movies have been out long enough to where if you don't generally know that it's a story about districts sacrificing their children to keep order in a dystopia, then I don't know what to tell you. But like all these years later, I don't really want to give a spoiler alert, but I am going to put links in the description of a bunch of other channels I like that did pretty good deep dives. It's this utopian dystopia where they trick you into thinking everything's okay by putting a fine veneer on it, make it real shiny and pretty. Fashion is both frivolous and important. It's its own character in the entire series. They don't shy away from it in the books. It's from the beginning to the end. And the movies don't downplay it, which is great. Plus, the story has one of my favorite characters in any sort of media, Cinna, who's a stylist and a sweet baby angel and everything I've strived to be as a designer over the last 20 years. For the most part, the movies do a pretty good job of adapting kind of what's described in the books, from the people in the capital to the people in the poorest districts. And one of the things that was kind of wrong with the first movie was they gave Donald Sutherland a lot of screen time, and that ended up omitting a lot of the kind of world building. I'm not really going to get into that, but it wasn't my favorite choice, and I feel like the second movie had to do a lot of heavy lifting for the first 15 minutes to kind of fix the stuff that was left out of the first movie. Plus, I just sort of felt like the most ostentatious costumes didn't push it far enough, and that was eventually remedied in the next movies, but they were fine. They just could have been more. So let's start with the world that this story takes place in. It's in the future, about 140 years, and it's the remnants of North America, mostly in the United States. And the capital, Panem, is in or around Colorado, and then everything else surrounds it. Each district has a specific export, and they're known for that thing, and they're rich or poor depending on what it is. As a quick aside, Panem is named for the Latin phrase Panem Et Circenses. I didn't go to Catholic school. I tried really hard to look up the pronunciation on YouTube, and I hope you appreciate the effort. But it essentially means bread and circuses. People are willing to be sedated if you distract them with fun and pretty things. So the capital and the richer districts are a lot more willing to be docile because they're given stuff. The capital is occupied by people who are easily distracted by decadence, be it parties or fashion, and they revel in it. At the beginning, we see this juxtaposition between two capital characters. We've got game maker Seneca Crane and Caesar Flickerman, who is the host of a reality show based around the games. And they're talking about how much fun it's going to be, and they're in these decadent over-the-top outfits with crazy hair and these really nice fabrics. And then we end up cutting to a scene where we just hear a piercing scream, and it's coming from the poorest district, District 12, which is where our main character, Katniss Everdeen, is from.
What defines your personal signature?
The next time we see a Capitol citizen, it's Effie Trinket, who's the escort to the tributes who are from District 12. She's supposed to take them to the Capitol. She's this bright colored splash in a gray, sad district that's just depressing and monotone. She has this air about her where she's frustrated and irritated that she has to be in this poor district, but she's still wearing her clothing, her fashion, and her job with pride, so she carries her head high and dresses for the occasion. Every time we see her on screen, she's that. Every time we see somebody from the Capitol, they're that. They are playing the part of the Capitol citizen. So while I did like what Effie wore in this movie, I feel like they really pushed it in the subsequent movies. This was like, it was almost there. I felt like her makeup could have been a little bit more. I felt like her hair could have been a little bit more. Just,
how about that?
Seeing the other people in the audience, they seemed a little bit more high fashion club kiddish. And then on top of that, because her hair was this way, I feel like everybody in the audience also had the same hair. If you look out onto the audiences, it's just a sea of people with the same hair as Effie. And I feel like if they're being distracted by fashion, they're going to be going above and beyond to outdo each other. And so it's going to be a lot more different. In the subsequent films, we see a lot more diversity of fashion. So while I did like this, and if it was a standalone thing, I guess I would have wished they had done a little bit more, but it would have been fine. But I think because they then pushed it as far as I wanted them to in the next couple of films, it kind of leaves me wanting for the first one. So let's head over to District 12, which is our poorest district. It's where our heroes are from, and we're introduced to it, as I said before, with a blood-curdling scream. And we see Katniss, our main character, just trying to calm down her sister and reassure her. We see this very sweet moment where she tucks in the back of her blouse, which to me shows care through clothing. I think it's very sweet that it's this thing where she's kind of being the mom because mom's emotionally and mentally unavailable. So she's kind of tapped into this mom role and she's making sure that Prim is well taken care of. So everybody in this district kind of dresses in this like Appalachian 1930s kind of, it looks like the Depression. And that doesn't quite make sense to me because I get that they're poor, but why would they all as an area go back to this style of dress from almost 200 years prior? I understand having essences of those things, but just straight up doing 1930s cosplay to me seems like almost like an easy out. And on top of that, we see things like lace, and lace is expensive, especially if you're that poor, and it looks like high quality machine lace. It's not hand tatted, which would also be expensive, but if that's an heirloom thing that you're learning how to do, everything would look like it was hand tatted, but it's not. It's all machine lace. So it makes me think, did these people go in on a spool of lace together and share it? Did they craft a bunch of dresses because they know that every couple of years some kids are gonna die, so they have hand-me-downs? Are they all just sharing the same things over and over again? If they're only wearing them for reaping day, they're not getting a ton of wear, so are they putting all of their money into these clothes to kind of make them look their Sunday best? It's fussy and picky, but it's one of those things where you kind of have to think about it before you do it.
What are you gonna do with the 100 pound
Lace beast.
Another thing is later, after Katniss kind of talks with Prim, we see Gale and Katniss get ready to go hunt, and they're wearing what looks like clothes from right now. They're fashion pants. It's not like she's wearing her dad's old work pants. I know in the book she wears her dad's jacket, but it doesn't look like a men's jacket to me. It fits her a little bit too well, but everything she's wearing it looks mass produced and fitted and in kind of good shape. Same with Gale. Why are they the only two in the district wearing clothing that doesn't look like it's part of the same time? None of it makes a lot of sense to me. As we're getting ready for reaping day, Katniss is taking care of Prim, and you can tell that her mom is trying to take care of her. She goes and takes her bath, and she gets out of the tub, and she sees the dress on the bed, and it's a lot plainer than what the kind of younger kids wear. There's no lace, there's some nice pin tucking, but it makes me think, was this the dress that her mom wore on her last reaping? Because it looks like it's fairly nice quality, it's well taken care of, and a thing from the books is we know that her mom comes from a less poor version of the district they're part of, so she might have had access to nicer things. I think also in the scene before she takes her bath, it's so sweet that she tucks in Prim's little ducktail by tucking in the back of her blouse again. Because later, during the reaping, we see Prim, after she's been chosen, gets so scared and she tries to be brave by tucking in her own little tail. Going back to Katniss getting ready for the reaping, one of the things I love about her mom sort of trying to be nurturing, even though it's obviously mentally taxing on her, is that she's doing this beautifully intricate braid. And one thing I did notice that I appreciate is that each district sort of has a signature hairstyle a little bit. And in District 12, it seems like everybody's got interesting and intricate braids. So her mom is taking a lot of time and care to do her hair. And then we see similar braids on Katniss for the rest of the franchise. Earlier before the reaping happens, Katniss is in the marketplace and she sees this Mockingjay pin, and one of the vendors decides to just give it to her, and part of me feels like that's because she knows this kid's gonna die, so why make her pay for it? But Katniss takes it and gives it to Prim. It's a protection totem. It helps her feel safe. And later, when we see Katniss volunteer for Prim, Prim gives it back to her to protect her. I love the symbolism. I love an accessory of symbolism. So on stage with Effie and the mayor, we see the peacekeepers for the first time, and they just look like straight up dorks. Like, they're supposed to be imposing, but they kind of look like Hot Fuzz a little bit. And it's fixed in the later films where they're, given this kind of imposing body armor, but they're not scary. And I think it's really funny that they act like they're trying to be very scary, but they look like crossing guards. So anyway, we see all the kids in their Sunday best getting ready for the reaping. Most of the people are in gray and tan, little smattering of calico here and there, maybe a little bit of rust, but for the most part, it's a very dry and dusty color palette. I know this isn't necessarily costume related, but one of the things I appreciate about the way the movie was filmed is when we're in District 12, it's got this blue filter over it, makes everything look not very saturated, and we still see Effie as the brightest thing. But then when we see her literally anywhere but District 12, she's even brighter because they removed that blue filter. You're not meant to feel sad anymore. It sort of reminds me of when Dorothy ends up in Munchkinland for the first time and you see all that color. When you're on the train with Effie and she's bright and everything's bright, you start noticing everything's bright, that blue filter is gone. And when you come upon the Capitol as the train is getting into the station, everything is just a sea of color like Munchkinland. On the train as well, Katniss has rosy cheeks, and it's kind of the first thing you notice before you notice how bright the food is. And it really just draws you into how colorful all of the fabrics are. It's subtle, and I really like it. While on the train, we're introduced to Haymitch Abernathy, who is the mentor to our two heroes, Katniss and Peeta. Peeta's the boy Victor, whatever. So Haymitch, he is struggling. You can tell that he's got his lifetime of winnings because his clothing is really high quality, even down to a detachable collar, which is something you really only wear nowadays as a sign of status. But it was something that was regularly worn turn of the last century because collars would get dirty and it was just easier to replace the collar than it was to replace the whole shirt. but he's not wearing it right. He didn't put the effort in to do anything with his clothing. So even though he's dressed in nice garments, he's not taking care of them and he's not taking care of himself. So now we're going to talk about my very favorite character, Cinna. He's a stylist and he is for Katniss. Peeta has his own stylist, and I have opinions on the job she did in the movie. I thought she did a very bad job of styling him, but Cinna really understood Katniss and the message he wanted to portray with her. I don't know if he knew from the beginning that he wanted her to be the Mockingjay, but you can tell he had something up his sleeve from the beginning, and the way he tells the story through the garments she wears, mwah. Plus, he just cares for her. He's probably seen dozens of kids come and go, but there's this real connection and this real warmth. And I wouldn't doubt for a second that he hasn't had that with everybody. I feel like he probably cares for these kids. And unlike a lot of other capital citizens, he's really low key. Like, he's very sophisticated, and his flair is just his gold eyeshadow or his gold eyeliner. He doesn't feel the need to stand out with an abundance of flair. He just is. And he puts all of his time and energy and creative juices into uplifting his tribute. And he does it with such grace. Cinna's my favorite. He's my favorite. Now we're introduced to the meat and potatoes of the story. We've got straight up child pageant. We've got, oh God, we have to get sponsors. It's a whole bunch of things happening all at the same time, and all of them are just an outfit change away. So we see Katniss and Peeta roll up in their chariot in front of the crowd for the first time in their amazing district-inspired outfits that, of course, Cinna just decided to set on fire. And they make such a splash with the crowd. No one's even looking at the other tributes because they're really gimmicky. And, you know, people are used to the people from District 12 dressing like coal miners, but instead he makes her the girl on fire. TM, copyright. And then we're introduced to Seneca Crane again. He's the game maker. And while I like his facial hair and his hair and even the vest he's wearing, his pants are hideous. They don't fit him right, and they look like my first homecoming pants. Like the first time you trust your son to go pick out his own pants for a nice school dance. It is so distracting because not only don't they fit right, but they're white, and so your eye is drawn to them, and I just expect something more, but I feel like that's kind of what I've been saying this whole time. I just expect a little bit more. We get to the tribute's quarters, and Effie is gliding effortlessly through the space. Peeta and Katniss are still in their fancy chariot outfit, but they look really out of place. Like, they're fancy, but they look like they don't belong there. And in the corners of all the rooms are Avoxes, which in the books, they're people who've rebelled against the Capitol, and so they have their tongues removed, and they are not allowed to talk, and they're essentially slaves. And I knew from the second I saw them what they were because I read the books. I feel like they didn't really do a good job of explaining what they were, and you just kind of had to know. So either you read the books and you knew what the point of them was, or it was just weird people standing around. When they're in their quarters, Katniss puts on some loungewear, and one of the things I notice about it is even though it's probably some of the fanciest clothing, like nicest quality she's had, it's very frumpy. And I actually really appreciate that anything she's wearing when she's just lounging in the Capitol is really not meant for the audience to like find attractive. She just wants to be comfortable. One of the reasons why I like that they did this is I find that in a lot of movies and TV shows where there's a love triangle, they really try to entice the audience into paying attention to the female love interest, even if that love interest is a teenager. So with this, it's just, hey, it's this kid who's getting ready to go fight for her life, not, hey, that girl's hot in her camisole. I want to look at this some more. So She looks comfortable, the clothing looks luxury, but it's not meant to titillate, and I appreciate that. I also noticed that when she goes into her room and she turns on the TV, it breaks it up by showing a scene of the Capitol and all of the people in their very fashionable outfits. So seeing these really high fashion, over the top outfits next to her frumpy, comfortable pajamas, it's an interesting comparison between the two worlds and how different they are. Now we meet all the other tributes at the training center, and one of the things I appreciate about how they dress the tributes is they're all dressed in the same or similar things, which reminds me of the Olympics. It's a competition like the Olympics, even though they're supposed to view it as entertainment. When you make it something that shows kind of like how good everybody is at staying alive, you're rooting for them. You're not like, man, I'm sure sad those children are going to die. You're like, yeah, teamwork, let's work it out. Draw the bow, punch the thing, you can do it. Now I will say the same thing that I keep saying, which is I like the next costumes better, the ones in Catching Fire. I think they look a little bit more futuristic. The ones that they're wearing in this movie look a little bit too right now. Not so bad as to be distracting, but again, if this was the only movie, it would have been fine. But since I saw a better job of it, it leaves me wanting. There's a scene where we see a lot of people in the Capitol, and it's not just adults, it's a lot of children too, like actual little children, and they're playing with all of these toy versions of things like swords. And you know that those kids will never be reaped. The kids in the Capitol, they don't get reaped. And even the people in the higher districts where they export luxury goods, their kids still get reaped. But nobody in the Capitol has to ever worry about their children getting taken away. So they get to live this gilded life. And we see Haymitch amongst these people, and he looks so vastly out of place, even though he's wearing clothing that's, probably just as expensive as theirs. But you can tell that he just doesn't feel comfortable in his skin around these people. And I do want to take a second right here just to kind of talk about how much I love Effie Trinket's outfits. Like I said, even though they didn't push it far enough, this is going to be kind of a little section that I do to just get all of Effie's great outfits out of the way. So 1, 2, 3, Effie. When we finally meet Caesar Flickerman for the first time, for real, not just that first scene where we're like, that guy's got a big bouffant. He's wearing this great sparkly suit. His teeth are so white. His hair is so tall. And he's just working the crowd. You can tell that this is his dream job. He doesn't think about those kids as throwaway humans. He sees them as the stars of the moment, and he treats them as such.
Welcome, 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 welcome to the 74th Annual Hunger Games!
This part flows into Katniss wearing her beautiful introduction pageant gown. It's going to be her second time being the girl on fire, and Cinna gives her this pep talk.
Don't you know how beautiful you look?
No, and I don't know how to make people like me. How do you make people like you?
Well, you made me like you.
That's different. I wasn't trying.
And you can tell that even though she's still apprehensive, she's sort of starting to feel a little bit more comfortable because she believes him. And I love that. So he's using his fashion to uplift her, and she's feeling it. The other tributes are obviously dressing to manipulate the audience. Glimmer is wearing something that's very feminine and young. Her hair is in youthful ringlets. Marvel looks like he's going to homecoming. Clover looks really uncomfortable in her dress and her hair. She's wearing a dress that's really frilly up here, so I don't know if they're trying to age her up a little bit so that the audience doesn't feel so bad about sending a young child to her death. Rue is a sweet baby angel, and she looks like she's going to Sunday school, which of course tugs at the heartstrings of the audience. R.I.P. Rue. Kato looks like a bro. Foxface also looks like she's going to homecoming. Their stylists all need to be fired. I expect more from the Capitol. Then we have it. Katniss comes out in her amazing red dress and just wows the audience. But she's still feeling apprehensive until she gives that twirl and it catches on fire and everyone loses their minds. And I think that's the first time she actually felt like the girl on fire. Peeta's wearing an outfit that I've described to my husband and my friends as a kid who wants to look expensive but won't stop shopping at Spencer's. And so he's dressed as what he thinks an expensive person looks like, but he's got no taste. And I don't blame him, I blame his stylist. He looks so dorky. Like, it's not sophisticated, it fits him weird. It's not even interesting, but he's still kind of trying too hard with the flames. Like, I get that they're going for the kids on fire or whatever, but it's just so on the nose and it looks so cheap. And he looks like he's going to Guy Fieri prom. I wonder if that's why they recast the actress who played the stylist. They just wanted to pretend that she didn't exist because she was such a bad stylist. Haymitch is in full fashion dad mode. He finally gives a crap. He's clean, he's calm, he's collected. His suit looks amazing. His collar's on straight, his hair is clean, and he's there to give that pep talk to Katniss. Katniss is wearing what she's gonna wear for the duration of the movie, which is a windbreaker and like pants and a shirt that look like from Right Now. Cool. Katniss is greeted by Cinna with the warmest, most loving hug. He says that he's not allowed to bet, but he would bet on her. And I just love that scene because you can tell how scared she is and she's shaking and he's doing his best to calm her down because he cares about her and he also knows how important it is to keep her wanting to live. He gives her her Mockingjay pin. It's her power item and he hides it. And he sends her in. We see the game maker's room. Everything is sleek, pristine, sterile. Anybody who's got hair, it's like gelled down. It's a uniform. It's very, very uniform. And Seneca's pants are still dumb. Everything else is fine. Now we're in the arena, and there's a point where Katniss is, she's stung by hallucinogenic insects, tracker jackers, and she starts to hallucinate Caesar Flickerman. And I don't know if it's because she doesn't know a lot about fashion or because they just didn't really put a lot of thought into it, but Caesar's wearing a white suit. Good choice. He stands out. It's like a little bit plain, so he really stands out as unnatural, but it doesn't really fit him right, and it doesn't look like something he would wear. So it's either that she just literally doesn't know anything about fashion, which makes sense, or they were just like, let's put him in a white suit. So let's just kind of think that maybe be a little bit more purposeful if you're going to do something like that. Like with the clothing that the people were wearing in District 2 for Reaping Day, I feel like this flashback scene with Katniss's dad is also unnecessarily old-timey. It still looks like very old-timey, turn of the last century coal miners stuff. There are coal miners right now that don't dress this way. So why do we have all of these coal miners that look like they're from decades past? And then also this old-timey framed photo. Again, you can have the essence of
Old-timey without it just being straight up Depression era costume.
In District 11, everyone is wearing what looks like fairly raggedy, well-worn farming clothing. And when we have the man who starts the uprising, he runs and he shoves the peacekeeper. He's wearing such a nice dress shirt, and he's the only one wearing a color like this. He looks like he got it from Express. Like, he just looks like some nice looking guy at the mall. It's a burgundy button down with like no visible wear on it. And I know that they probably put him in a color so he would stand out and you would notice him before he shoves somebody. But compared to everybody else, he looks very out of place. And I think that you could have achieved the same thing with the same kind of clothing everyone else was wearing, because they all look like farmers. Why does he just look like some dad at the mall? We close the movie with Peeta and Katniss, who are our victors, meeting with Caesar Flickerman again. And Katniss is wearing this beautiful, frothy, feminine, young, buttery, cute dress. And she's supposed to look sugary and young and innocent so that the audience loves her. That translated very well from the book. The way they described how she was dressed and what they expect of her going forward, that was perfect. Peeta's outfit is so boring. Who cares? It's a blue jacket with no collar. It's a black vest over a black V-neck t-shirt. Ooh, edgy and fashionable. Fire his stylist. When Katniss and Peeta go back to District 12 when they're going on their, it's not even their victory tour, it's just their return home, Katniss is wearing what to me looks like a higher end version of what she was wearing on Reaping Day. It's still this kind of peasant-y, soft, homespun kind of looking dress. It looks comfortable, but it looks more expensive. Peeta just looks like he's wearing his dad's blazer over a t-shirt for a job interview, and it's just another boring outfit. Peeta looks so bad, and it's so distracting, especially with how great he's styled in the next few movies. It looks like a reverse of what he wore on Caesar's show, just somehow even lazier. So for the most part, I do like the costumes in this movie, genuinely. I kind of had a rough time watching the movie in the theater for the first time because I had just gotten done reading the books a couple months prior, and I was still sad about Rue, and I had all these feelings, and I just got so frustrated with the stuff that they changed that didn't need to be changed. But I was appreciative that they kept the fact that fashion was as important as it was in the books, because it could have been easily glossed over to make for like wider appeal to an audience. And you have things where it seems like it's geared towards girls and people just poo-poo it, but it was important. And everybody that I know who likes the property thinks that it was done well, and I really appreciate that. Like I said, I just wish they had pushed it a little bit further in the first movie. I can't wait to talk about the next couple because I really liked them a lot. They did a good job of adapting the story, an amazing job with the costumes. You won't be able to get me to shut up about it. Now to ask you, why do you think the Capitol was so easily taken in by bread and circuses? How do you think the tributes felt when they were given a taste of luxury for the first time, knowing that they weren't going to live long enough to be able to revel in it? Now that the prequel book is going to be made into a movie, what do you think the style was like 60 years ago in this world? Thanks for joining me for this video. I really like talking about this kind of thing, so whenever you join me, it makes me very happy. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up. Please subscribe if you're thinking about it, and I can't wait to talk to you next time.